welcome. I am going to put on about maybe a 30-minute flow here. We're going to stretch into a little bit around the hips, do some breath work, get the rib cage moving, and yeah, follow along. Let me know what you think. Turn this down a little bit. Get you to come take a seat, just wherever, get yourself comfortable. I've got a little block to sit on just to nestle my sits bones so that they're elevated above my hips, and I can take a tall seat, just kind of breathing in, lengthening through the spine, feeling a little bit more spaciousness between the vertebrae. Taking a couple good inhales and exhales. Just letting your body and your mind settle. You can close your eyes, or maybe have a soft gaze off in front of you. Hands placed maybe on the fronts of your thighs, feeling your strong quadriceps muscles, or dangling by your sides. Just let them fall wherever is comfortable. Just taking a few natural breaths to get rooted. Bring your body and your mind into this space. And at your own pace, on an inhale, see if you can bring the breath through the rib cage, feeling some expansion outwards, maybe back and front. Just bringing a bit of shape change to the upper abdomen with those inhales and exhales. So on the inhale, we're thinking about that rib cage getting wider, broader, upwards, outwards, sideways, left and right, taking up space in all directions. And then on that inhale, just collapsing and coming closer together. Just notice if there's anywhere that feels maybe a little sticky, a little more challenging. A little restless even. Just see if you can send the breath there, in through those sticky places. Letting that breath just relax and unwind. Take a few more breaths here for yourself, just letting all the thoughts of the day settle. Letting them fall like raindrops from the sky, pattering into a puddle, to be acknowledged another time. And on an inhale, bring your arms out wide, all the way up. Let your shoulders come and meet your ears. Really kind of get scrunched up, and then relax the shoulders, bring a bend to your elbows if you can, whatever feels good. And just do that a couple more times. You can even throw your fists in, ball your fists up and feel that and just release it. Maybe even throw your arms down on that release and just let it go. One more time here, arms all the way up. Let the shoulders connect with your ears. Let that feel a little hunchy and just let it all release. And on the next inhale, bring your arms up, but keep the shoulders down. Let them find that nestled place where they can slide and glide with the arm bones. And just take a couple breaths here with the arms more above your head. They don't have to be perfectly straight. They can just be soft as if you were cupping a giant beach ball. Let that breath move through the rib cage here a couple times. It ripples through each vertebrae. Feel the ribs knit back together on the exhale. And on another exhale breath here, bringing the right hand down to your side, left hand scooping over into a little arch. Inhale, fill the rib cage, come back up a little bit, just undulate through the sides of the ribs here. Remember to let that left shoulder blade be soft. Maybe let that right ear get heavy towards the ground and the shoulder, bringing more space through the left side between the neck and the shoulder. I've just got a little bounce in my right elbow here. That's what feels good to me right now. You can join me or play a different way. Maybe moving the rib cage side to side feels good. Or maybe just staying still and just allowing and feeling that breath through the left side of the rib cage. One more breath here. And on that inhale, coming all the way up, switching sides, left hand meets the floor, right hand arching all the way over the head. Take a moment to sort of resettle that right shoulder blade onto your back. Let it get heavy. Let that left ear get heavy towards the ground, pulling the right side of the head away from the shoulder and away from the arm. You can play with a little bit of that bob or flow through the left arm with some inhales and exhales, and again maybe rolling the rib cage up and down if it feels good. Just bringing some space and breath into the right side. One more breath here. And on your next inhale, all the way up through center. Drop the arms down to your sides. Give a couple shoulder rolls, forwards and back. Let the hands stay heavy wherever they're comfortable. Take a breath and just relax. I'll ask you to cross your arms over your chest. We're just going to do a little bit of rotation through the thorax here. So take a moment, just settle in, make sure your sits bones are touching the floor. You're in a comfortable seat, and again, you're just sort of feeling a little bit of lift from the bottom of the spine all the way up to the top of the head. Once you've found that little bit of lift, think about just rotating the top of the spine to the left side. Stay here for a few breaths. If you feel one side of your body, your sits bones lifting, just come out of that rotation a little bit. Find a place that's comfortable where both your bum cheeks and your sits bones can be rooted on the floor completely. And just focusing on breathing and bringing a little bit more of that rotation through the front of the rib cage, through the vertebrae, through the spine. Relax the hip flexors on the fronts of the hips and thighs. Lastly, turn your head to look over that shoulder if it's available for you. One more deep breath here, thinking about expanding through the rib cage, and another inhale, and on that exhale, just rotate out and come through center all the way to the right side. You might notice that one side feels a little bit more awkward than the other. That's okay, just notice it. Your body's just living. Again, soften through the hip flexors, maybe soften through the jaw. Think about rotating through that upper spine. And breathing in through the rib cage with that rotation. One more deep breath here. Maybe look over that right shoulder if it's available for you in your neck. One more deep inhale here, opening up the ribs. And on the exhale, just come through center and drop the arms. Get you to move your block or a pillow or anything like that if you were sitting on one. And we're just gonna come into a tabletop position here, so hands and knees. If this feels a little bit uncomfortable, maybe for your wrists, feel free to recruit a towel or a bolster or a couple pillows so that maybe that incline isn't as much and there's not as much flexion. You know, you can be really flexible here, play with what your body has going on. Sorry, I'm gonna turn my music down. There we go. So, hands and knees position here. We're just gonna roll through the spine a little bit before we start. Think about pulling those elbows forward and really getting grounded through the index finger and the thumb mound. Just rock back and forth if that feels good for you. Finding and cultivating a little bit of strength there. I like to keep my toes tucked as I'm sending that tailbone back. We're just sort of hinging in through the hips here at the end. Think about sending that tailbone up towards the sky. Couple more rocks back and forth here. And now we'll move through a little bit of cat and cow. So tipping the tailbone up, letting the belly and the rib cage drop, and then bringing the head and the gaze forward. Inhaling here. Feeling that opening through the collarbones, and on the exhale, start with the tailbone, round it underneath. See if you can get a little segmental here. So starting with the tailbone And the coccyx, the sacrum there, going through the lumbar spine, then getting into the thorax, and then letting the head drop and getting into the top of the spine for that more cat position here. And untuck the tailbone. See if you can use the glutes to untuck that, then send the ribs forward, collarbones open, and the head and neck open up for cow. Couple more rounds here, just at your own pace. See once more. How does it feel to kind of play with those segments? You know, can you start by just using the tailbone and then working through the rest of the body? Maybe you can do the opposite, start at the neck, then work through that thoracic, and then the lumbar, and then tuck the tailbone to get into that cat position. Again, just moving at your own pace here. Experiment a little, whatever feels good for you. You'll notice I'm kind of rocking maybe a little back and forth or side to side. Feel free to play around with that. I like to kind of dip my hips, maybe make some circles as I'm moving with the cat and cow movement through my tailbone. And then you can reverse those circles, go the opposite way if that feels good for you. If not, just regular cat and cow, forward and back. Just opening up any areas that maybe feel a little stiff. You can kind of wiggle the body side to side. Just bringing in a little bit more movement and play. Really trying to tune into your own body. Feel your own areas of stiffness, your own areas of discomfort, your own areas of maybe resistance. Just doing a couple more rounds of breath here and just moving into kind of that more traditional cat and cow shape. And then just come to kind of this all fours tabletop position into what might be more considered a neutral spine. So we're not super rounded on either kind of extreme here. We want to feel that the tailbone is a little bit open and sort of flat through the sacrum here, but not kind of hyper extended or really tucked under. There's just a little gentle openness there. See if you can find that for yourself in your own body. And if you can play with sort of tucking it underneath really hard, kind of squeezing the bum and then sort of releasing that extra and getting that opening like we get in cow position, and just finding maybe something in between that feels a little bit more neutral. Once you're there, tuck the toes underneath and just hover the knees off the floor a little bit. See if you can send the body weight forward into the wrists. Just here for a couple breaths, just lighting up the abdominals and drop it down. If you need to just shake out your wrists a little bit, I know for me, I often feel like I do need that. So take a moment to do so. And we're just going to come into that hover once more here, bringing the knees about an inch or so off the ground, thinking about elbows are pressing towards the front of the room. The back of my neck is pressing up towards the ceiling, and I'm squeezing through my knees, through my abdominals. Drop it back down. Take a breath. And once more here. Toes are tucked underneath. Just see if you can hover the knees an inch off the floor, sending the weight a little bit more forward into the arms and the wrists. Engagement through the abs, maybe through the inner thighs and the shoulders. And just drop and relax the knees. Maybe bend the wrists the other way. Shake that out a second. Just rocking back and forth. I'm going to kind of come up into more of this downward dog shape here. So think about getting really grounded through the fronts of the index finger and the thumb mound, bringing those elbows kind of forward and in, tuck the toes, and then press up and back with the legs and the glutes. So the highest portion here is the sits bones. They're going up towards the ceiling. You know, for this, we often want to keep the knees quite bent so that we can achieve this kind of deep hip hinge, probably feeling a bit of a stretch through the backs of the hamstrings, maybe the calves as the heels kind of aim to get more towards the floor, and then thinking about pressing in to the hands and kind of bringing that space through the armpits so that the head can just fall graciously. Just bring this here for a moment, holding for a couple more seconds, a few more rounds of breath. Think about relaxing the jaw, once more pushing in through those index fingers and thumb mounds, and at the same time trying to get the heels closer to the floor. They do not have to be touching. One more breath here. And exhale, walk the feet all the way towards the hands here. And on an inhale, just start to roll the spine all the way up. And exhale, roll the shoulders back and just find a comfortable spot. Maybe shift your weight from side to side and just sort of feel that sort of vibrancy through the body. On an inhale, bring the arms up to the ceiling, and exhale, bringing them down, starting to hinge through the hips here. So I'm sending my hip bones, my seat back, and then coming over the tops of the legs if that's available to you. Hands are coming towards the ground. On an inhale, kind of become more of a flatter back here, like that tabletop shape almost, and then exhale, kind of release that and feel a little bit more of a stretch through the back of the hamstrings here. Inhale once more so that we can just kind of feel what that feels like to sort of have that hip hinge with that straight back, and then release that. Let the back curve. One more time here, coming up, feel that hinge, so sending the glutes to the back of the room, weight a little bit more distributed in the heels, and then just fall over tops of the thighs, getting that nice juicy hamstring stretch. Inhale, just let the head relax, hands coming towards the ground, and on an exhale, just coming all the way down to that hands and knees position here once more. We're gonna actually bring the right leg forward, but just stay in this kind of lunging position here. So I'm right above my left leg is on the floor. My right leg is kind of this 90-degree angle in front of me, and I'm just in this sort of kneeling lunge here. Think about kind of tucking the tailbone underneath you. So I'm kind of squeezing everything and pulling it in and down. And at the same time, I'm just, without actually moving my leg, thinking about pulling this foot towards the back of the room. So this foot is kind of has this here, this left thigh sort of scissoring like this, while the pelvis is thinking about kind of tucking underneath and just sort of addressing those movements, sort of kind of bringing it all together here. Once you sort of feel that, you can start to then focus on keeping the ribs flat. We don't want to be splayed through the front here, so just kind of stacking nicely above your hips, and then bringing the arms all the way up If this is enough of a stretch, just stay here. If you'd like a little bit more, maybe through the front of this psoas, the hip flexor muscle, you can drop the right hand and just start to bring a little bit of a side bend through the right, so we're feeling the left side open up. So I'm just coming a little bit more to the left here, opening up, and just breathing. Again, thinking about tucking that tailbone underneath so that I'm feeling it through the front of this thigh. One more breath here. And on the inhale, come on back to sort of our neutral position here. And get you to turn that left leg back. So maybe you can see this is the back of my left leg facing you now. I've got kind of almost like a warrior two position, but from the knees. So my lunge is kind of turned onto its side. And you can here just start to pulse a little bit, go back and forth, just feel a little bit of movement through the backs and fronts of the legs. You can leave those toes tucked or untucked, whatever feels good in the back for you. Just thinking about if you are pulsing back and forth, making sure that that front knee is staying stacked over top of kind of more the outside of the foot. It's not kind of caving in. So we're just sort of pushing back and forth, letting the arms kind of flow wherever they're comfortable. And then coming on to that right elbow, send that left arm up in the air and just think about rotating the rib cage towards the left side. So kind of like we did at the beginning, a little bit of opening up through that chest. Maybe look up towards your left hand if it's in the air, and then just thinking about getting a little bit more through this front and side body. Pushing into that toe mount on the right side to keep us balanced here. One more breath here. And kind of rotate out. Coming forward with our left knee still planted on the ground. If you need some cushioning, like a little towel or blanket, please do so. Just come forward into sort of this heavy lunge here for a breath, and then send the hips back and the toes up towards the ceiling. Just a hamstring stretch on that right side now. Really think about dragging that right hip back towards the back of the room and squaring off those hips a little bit more, keeping that right toe and ankle flexed. A little bit more movement into the right hamstring there and the right hip. Couple more breaths here. And on an inhale, coming forward, and then just send that right leg back. Maybe move the hip side to side. And then we're gonna bring that left leg forward into that position that we started in with this more kind of 90-degree stacked lunge. So the right knee is right below the right hip. Thinking about tucking the tailbone underneath us here to sort of push through and get a little bit more space through that right hip flexor. Grounding into our big toe mound on the left side and just feeling that kind of push and pull through the legs. So this left leg and heel is kind of energetically pulling towards my back, towards the back of the mat, and feeling a little bit more engagement through that hamstring there. With that tail tuck underneath, then we're feeling kind of from the right hamstring is pulling the tailbone forward and this right hip forward. And then you can send the arms up and over your head. If this feels like enough, please stay. Remember, try not to splay through the ribs here, making sure the ribs were more flat through the abdominals and that the ribs are staying stacked over the hips here. If you want a little bit more, you can bring your left arm down and then start reaching that right arm across the body, making sure that that left toe mound stays down for balance. Getting a juicy stretch in through the left hip flexor all the way up, right hip flexor all the way up into the rib cage and around into that armpit. Inhale, float the arms up and forward. Step that knee back if you need to. You can kind of get into this deep lunge here. And I'm going to back it up to get into our sort of modified warrior 2 here. So just if you've got the left leg in front of you here, the right knee is down, just spin that right knee. So now you're kind of like, I don't know, half open here in what could be like this kneeling warrior 2, as I like to call it. Make sure that front toe mound is grounded here. We're feeling strong through the knee and just kind of moving back and forth, pulsing, making sure that that knee on the left side is heading towards the left kind of corner, front corner of your mat, maybe feeling a little bit of a stretch through the inner thigh, and just letting the arms kind of flow where they need to go. And if it feels good for you, you can start to sort of lean into that front left knee, bringing the right arm around, up and around to the top, and then start to just open the right side of the rib cage, getting a really nice juicy stretch along the right side, feeling that rib basket just open with every inhale, bringing in more space, collarbones kind of lifting up and out. You can follow that with your gaze, your drishti, up towards the top right hand. Relax the jaw. Another breath here. And on the exhale, kind of unwind and bring that back leg parallel once more with the front. Get into this sort of deep lunge through the left side for a moment. Our right knee is still on the floor. And then send the hips back towards the back of the mat, tucking, flexing the toes and the ankle on that left side, pulling that left hip back and down so it's becoming more squared off with the right side. That might send a little bit more sensation through the back of the pelvis or into your lower back, around the hip. All of this is sort of normal. All of these sensations, these connections through the body. If you need a little bit more in this position here, you can think about slowly untucking the pelvis while keeping those toes flexed and that ankle flexed up. And just breathing into those spaces. Think about sending the chest towards the foot and the shin. One more breath here. And just bend that front knee, coming out of it, plant the hands, and then just return that leg back to your tabletop here. Once we're in our tabletop position here, think about once more bringing those armpits forward, tuck the toes, going back up into this downward dog, just for a quick breath here. And on the inhale, we're gonna come forward into a plank position. You can drop to your knees if that feels better for you. Bring the collarbones forward, nice and light, and just slowly, slowly, slowly bring the chest towards the mat. Untuck the toes, roll the shoulders back, bring the chest up, the chin back. Little mini cobra here. Just hold this for a couple moments. Just bring some breath in through here, feeling some engagement through the posterior chain, through the back and the glutes, and then just let that fall, coming back down. Do that once more. Roll the shoulders up, back and down. Allow that movement to just open the chest, peel it off the floor, take a breath, and then relax and release. All the way, push all the way back, and send your hips down into a child's pose. Let your head rest on the forehead, everything get heavy. Maybe feel those ribs pressing into the thighs as you inhale deeply. Sending a little bit more breath into the backs of the rib cage. Letting the toes relax, the jaw relax, the shoulders relax. And when you're ready, you can sort of roll all the way onto your back if you like, or meet me in a seated position. Take a couple breaths wherever you've landed. Feel that gentle energy washing over you, a nice wave rolling through the body. Thank you for joining me today. I hope that you enjoyed, were able to move a little bit more into your body in a variety of ways. If you have any questions or if you want more, please let me know. I would love to hear from you. Namaste.